Welcome to the Connect studio. My name's Janet Wood and I'm talking to Gerrit Jan Schaeffer from EnergyVille. Please join me on stage.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Take a seat.
Yeah?
Well, maybe we could talk first about the recent COP meeting and what
Yes.
came out of that and
Yeah.
what the outcomes of that mean for the energy sector.
And maybe also especially for Europe. Yes, I think it is good that sometimes in a completely different country than what you're used to, because you have another way of looking at the whole issue. And I think the loss and damage part, of course, was the most, let's say, prominent outcome. And what does it mean for Europe? Well, it's not something, let's say, it's not something that is far in the future. It's something that has a real consequence for us. And we're going to have to pay together with the other emitters, historic emitters, for the loss and damage that is already occurring. Of course, it's not clear yet, but that's one of the outcomes. It's becoming more real also for us. Second thing, there are a few tiny things that happen that are important.
Yeah.
For instance, the European Commission said that the 55 target will be 57. A small, but I think an important thing. So it's not anymore fit for 55, but it will be fit for 57. And also a few things that happened is that the CBAM mechanism got a lot of good critics.
The CBAM?
Yeah, the CBAM is the carbon border adjustment mechanism for the European transmission, the emission trade system. Sorry, and I think that's also good because it means that other continents in the world will set up their own systems and to see how that interacts with the European system. So Europe is really leading in this, let's say, this internalization of the cost of carbon. And although these are very small steps, I see the COPs as a process. Next year we have a new one. So of course in the media the outcome was seen as disappointing. It's almost always disappointing, but in the meantime it's also part of the process to get there. Although I agree with the critics that we have to move a lot faster. 1.5 degrees, it's almost impossible if you don't accelerate. And I think it's also not good if you don't keep it, because this 1.5 degrees is really necessary to reduce the risk that we really get into a bad situation with the Earth. Maybe even not now, maybe not even in 50 years, but in 100 or 200 years certainly. So the coming decades are the decades that we can do something. And this 1.5 degrees is very important, so indeed we need to go faster.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's not just the coming decades, I think, for us this winter, but the coming months and weeks. And this winter, I think, has been particularly in Europe under the microscope because we are at a real energy crisis.
Yeah.
And there's been discussion, is that going to make the transition go faster or slower?
Yeah.
Well, how do you see that?
So this is it's complicated. So I'll take a little bit of time, because yes, we have those long-term time scales and also the very short ones. So it's about maybe how is the Earth in 200 years due to the things that we do the coming decades. And at the same time, last year we had we have an energy crisis. We have high energy prices even before the war, by the way. And so that mechanism maybe should be explained first. As soon as you want to transition, you have to start invest more in the new things and start to invest less in the old things. And we did invest less in the old things.
Yeah.
So central banks were critical on investment that will emit a lot of carbon. And then the COVID happens, and we got a lot of reductions in demand, and we didn't see that indeed we had reduced our investments in fossil fuels. So a year ago, the world got up again and it was growing again, and you get high prices, which has been accelerated by the war. It's not only due to the war, we are in a transition. And now the question is, do we invest again a little bit more in the fossil fuels, or do we accelerate the investments in renewables? And of course we should do the latter.
Yeah.
But what we feel now is, we should go back to gas, we should turn on our coal power plants. What is necessary for, let's say, keeping our lights on and things like that. So in the short term, I see probably a kind of neutral thing, more coal relative that is used. On the other hand, the energy demand has reduced also enormously. Maybe this year we will use electricity at a lower level than in 2008. So we are pretty stable in let's say in Western Europe.
Yeah.
We haven't been growing in electricity use the last 50 years more or less, and this year will be very, very low. So probably we will have, maybe if you have a peak worldwide, it will be a little bit more than last year. But on the other hand, we also see that the import of solar panels are at an all-time high in Europe. That's the demand for heat pumps are very high. That industries are really looking at going to real alternatives for the longer term. So it's a little bit a mixed picture. But finally, I think it can accelerate the energy transition, which also is needed. So the investments we should go for the acceleration investment in renewables, reduce the times to build, reduce the red tape around it, and I think that's very important. And I see that happening a little bit, but not too much, and not enough yet. But we have to go there. Yeah.
Do you think we ought to pay more attention to next winter than this winter?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Because this winter people have tended to go back in some cases to coal plants which are already there. True. Because we still have them. But some people think that next winter is going to be a bit tougher than this winter, and that gives us a window to invest. Absolutely.
So it means that we have to invest as soon as possible in the storage that we already have. See if we can have additional storage. Well, we see the market works in a way. We had floating LNG terminals in Europe, and so a lot of things happen. But on the other hand, it also says the need to reduce energy demand in all kinds of ways, and also to invest even further in accelerating this energy transition. So more solar panels, more wind offshore, more wind, and it's also coming. And hopefully it's enough to get through the next winter. And after 2 or 3 winters, I think we could be there. Yes. And we don't need the gas from Russia anymore.
Yeah, 2 or 3 winters.
Yeah.
Well, how can we use the low carbon generation that we've got to its in the most efficient way? Because in some cases we have to constrain it off. In some cases it needs to be transmitted quite long distances.
Well, if you look at that question, we have to go a little bit. We have to take a step back and look at the whole energy value chains that we have. So finally, we know now we are at 8 billion people in the world. We see also that probably it will level off at some time because the fertility rate of women worldwide is going down towards 2, so it's in the right direction. So we will end up with 10 or 11 billion in the future. So we have to feed those mouths, and also it will level off because of increased wealth. So the wealth of people will increase, and that's one of the reasons why we will level off at that. So it also means a lot of extra energy demand. People want to have AC in their homes in all countries in the world and things like that, and they want to have a car or a scooter or whatever. So then we have to think how we can keep the primary energy demand in hand. And that's by choosing for energy efficient chains. So first of all, of course, reducing energy demand where it's possible. And maybe devise cities where you don't need a car anymore, so the 15-minute city, things like that. I'm all for that, but we know there is a lot of energy demand still there. So for mobility, in fact, it means we have to choose for electric vehicles. Why is that? If you look at the alternative, what is often mentioned, which is the hydrogen vehicle, you see that you lose a lot of energy along the chain. Mm-hmm. So you start with the electricity, and suppose it's green hydrogen, because that's what you all want to go for. Then you lose already 30% in heat by producing the hydrogen. Then you have to transport this hydrogen, and this hydrogen is a very small molecule, so you will lose some along the way. So maybe you end up at 65–60% when you pump it in your car. In your car, you turn it back into electricity, losing more than half of the energy. And then it goes into the same electric engine as you use in an electric car. So it's 2 or 3 times more inefficient. Mm-hmm. It means for every mile traveled, for every kilometer traveled, you have to build 2 extra windmills compared to the one that you need for the electric vehicle. So don't do those kind of things. Stop with that. Do the right things, which is electrification of transport in this case. Same for heating homes. A heat pump is almost 8 times more efficient than a condensing boiler on hydrogen. Don't do that. Don't go for experiments to do hydrogen in homes. So that means that we got a lot of electrification, and then we have to decarbonize further our electricity system. So, and that's also needed because we still will need some molecules for the industry to make ammonia, fertilizer, for steel, to not use coal anymore for steel. And if you now produce hydrogen by the electricity mix in Europe, it's even dirtier than getting it out of natural gas. So we have to get far below 100 grams per kilowatt hour. Then it becomes cleaner.
Yeah, yeah.
So at this moment, producing hydrogen is even not yet a good idea. Of course, to get experience, to develop the technology, we have to do that. But if you do it in Europe right now, we are just too early. So I think that is very important, that we look at how we develop those value chains that are efficient, and then the choices are not so difficult anymore. So apart from all, let's say, the societal aspects and the incumbents and the new ones and the policy that you want to do, and policymakers who don't really are into the let's say the contents of the whole energy transition, maybe listen sometimes to a little bit of scientists, some of the scientists that can, well, show you, for instance, the laws of thermodynamics, which is just there's so much energy and there is not more. You cannot create it out of nothing. No. And you have losses along the value chain, and that makes some of the choices very easy. Yeah.
So it's really, it's all electrification is the best way to go. Not for everything, but for a lot of things.
Almost always, but you have to look at case by case. Yes. But almost always, electrification is more efficient than alternatives. But you cannot do it always. No. So there are, let's say, the marine shipping around the world of those big container ships. You cannot do it on electricity. Flying from here from Frankfurt to maybe Milan, you might be able to do electrically in the future. That might be nice. But going to New York or to Singapore or to Melbourne, you still need a plane that runs on a fuel. And probably, why not the same fuel as they use right now, but based on green hydrogen and also CO2 that first will come from point sources maybe, but maybe finally we'll have to get out of the air with direct air capture. So these are also the innovations we have to work on. Yeah. And it will be pretty expensive, more expensive than maybe today, but certainly with the CO2 price that is high enough, it can be made economic. But that's the way we have to go to. And well, we did at a certain moment a calculation how much hydrogen we will need for those, let's say, unavoidable applications. Mm-hmm. So we talk about industrial applications, and I already mentioned fertilizer, steel making, which you also can think about the how to reuse plastics, so the chemical reuse of plastics. So you need a hydrogen to get, let's say, the molecules out of each other and then building new ones again. So that's industry, and then also flying and sea shipping. And if you calculate how much that is, it's about 300 to 400 megatons in 2050. What does that mean? If you want to produce it by green electricity, you will need a doubling of all the electricity generation today in the world, with all our sources, to make just that hydrogen. So as long as you don't have a massive overflow of hydrogen, only use it for those cases that you need it for, and use the energy efficient value chains for all the other ones. And I think that's really a plea to do that, and also will direct, let's say, the kind of research we have to do, the kind of innovation we have to do.
Yeah, you've mentioned some new technologies there, things like direct air capture and some of the processes for getting hydrogen back from plastics. Yeah. What would you say are the key technologies where we really need to focus our research investment now?
Well, of course, we need to do a lot of things. And first of all, maybe surprisingly, I will say we need also to focus on incremental innovation. Don't forget that. We have now solar cells that are 20-21% efficient on the market. They need to become 40% efficient in the market. So we just need those kind of things. Also the batteries. We have batteries that have, let's say, 200-300 watt hours per kilogram or liter, and it has to be doubled. So we should not forget about that. Just continue research on technology development for those, let's say, technologies that we need for the energy transition. They're already there, they're already used, but they need to be improved. And then there is, of course, what we just discussed about green molecules and their direct air capture to get it to a level economically that is cost effective, so far below $100 per ton, and probably maybe even 50. I think that's still a way to go. And third of all, there's something else happening right now. So as I said, the electricity consumption has not really grown the last 50 years. So it's a kind of stagnating sector. On the other hand, now we tell them you will double or triple your electricity consumption by 2030, 40 or 50 because we're going to electrify heating and housing, we're going to electrify transport. So there will be, so they need to learn how to grow again. And then while doing that, the fleet of our power stations is very old. It's between 35 and 40 years. All those coal, nuclear, gas a little bit less. They are old, so it means that they will be taken out the next coming years. Sometimes we try to enlarge their lifetime a little bit, like in France. It doesn't help always. It's more difficult than we thought. Also, some countries build new nuclear power plants, for instance, but even though, for instance, in the UK, there will be this Hinkley Point power station, there will be less generation of nuclear in 2030 than in 2020, because in the meantime there's been more taken out. So all in all, lots of power plants are going down, and coal power plants are not planned anymore in Europe, and it's about 150 gigawatts that will be ending the next few years. And instead of that, we're going to build wind offshore, mainly. And so it means that we have to transport this electricity over, not only over sea, but also over land. You have to get it into Czechia and Austria and things like that. Yeah. And we need HVDC networks for that. And networks of HVDC, they don't exist very well. We have lines, but not networks. So research into meshed networks HVDC is very important too. Yeah, okay. Sorry. That's I could go on for hours, I know.
There's a lot for us to do, and I think it's going to be very, very exciting, actually. Yeah. Well, you can see all the Connect interviews at enlit.world, and thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.